In this true crime documentary, we uncover the shocking case of Betsy Faria, Shirley Neumann, and Louis Gumpenberger.
It was a time where I was supposed to figure out my next steps in the world, and then I got my whole world shaken up when my mom passed away, and I basically lost my father in the process.
They told me if I were not to talk during the trial, they were going to have to subpoena me, and Leah Askey told me I would not like that.
Leah Askey was the Lincoln County prosecutor during 2 trials against their stepdad, Betsy Faria's husband, Russ Faria. Askey did not respond today to my request for comment. Leah and Mariah said the former prosecutor and former Lincoln County investigators told them their stepdad, who's exonerated today, was the only possible killer.
Our story today takes us into the state of Missouri. But unlike the cases we covered before this time, we are not tied to a single location, because what happened here stretches across 3 different cities inside the same state. And if you think that means 3 separate crimes, then you are close, but not quite, because the only connection between all of them is that the killer was the same person whose shadow moved quietly through every scene. Now we begin in the city of Troy, in Lincoln County, a quiet place where the Faria family lived, a family built around Russ Faria, his wife Betsy Faria, and their daughters Mariah and Leah. Betsy was born on March 24th, 1969, and she grew up known as the kind of person who lit up any room she walked into. Her friends always said she had this strange, unexplainable ability to turn even the dullest gathering into something warm and full of life. And that quality was not just a natural gift, it was almost a second job, because alongside her main work as an insurance specialist at State Farm, Betsy also worked as a DJ, and she carried that same energy everywhere she went. Betsy and Russ met, fell in love, and married in the year 2000, and life moved forward gently as they raised their daughters. But in the early years of 2010, things between them became unstable, and their marriage was close to ending. And then came the moment no one expected, when Betsy was diagnosed with breast cancer and began her long, exhausting journey with chemotherapy. The diagnosis wiped away every argument, at least for Russ, who stayed beside her through everything along with her lifelong friend, Pam Hupp. The first months of treatment brought hope, and doctors said the cancer was shrinking and might soon be gone. But the disease returned stronger than before, and the hope that once filled the house slowly faded. On Tuesday, December 27, 2011, Betsy headed to one of her chemotherapy sessions, accompanied by a friend who often went with her, and before stepping inside, she told him that Pamela would pick her up afterward and drive her home around that same time. Russ was working from home until 5 in the evening. Then he filled up his car with fuel, and at 5:22, he called his mother to tell her he would not come for dinner. He stopped again at 5:56 to buy 2 bottles of Snapple. Then he met his friends and spent the evening watching movies. He left around 9 and picked up some sandwiches on his way home, reaching the house at about 9:40. Inside, the silence felt wrong, and when he found Betsy, she was lying on the floor drenched in blood. Her wrists were cut and a knife was lodged in her neck. She had been stabbed 55 times, and the scene screamed of violence and rage. Russ grabbed his phone and called for help.
Lincoln County 911, what is the location of your emergency? Okay, ma'am. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, I need you to take a couple deep breaths so I can see what's going on. Russell, what's going on there?
I just got home from a friend's house, and my wife killed herself. She's on the floor.
Okay, Russell, I need you to calm down, honey, okay? I need you to calm down, take a couple deep breaths. We're going to get somebody on the way there, okay? What did she do? Do you know?
She got a knife in her neck and she sliced her arms.
Okay, calm down, honey.
When Russ called for help, he told them he believed his wife had taken her own life, and that statement immediately unsettled investigators, because even though Betsy had once attempted something similar, no one could understand how anyone could cause 55 deep injuries to themselves, and Russ claimed he was so overwhelmed when he entered the house that all he noticed was the blade lodged in her neck, while the rest of the damage disappeared behind the overwhelming blood covering the room. In that moment, the investigators started to wonder whether shock alone could really blind someone to everything happening around them. The medical examiner concluded that Betsy had passed nearly an hour before Russ arrived, yet the detectives cared far less about the timeline and far more about the man standing in the interrogation room, because in their eyes, he was no longer a grieving husband. He was the primary suspect who had not waited for his ill wife to slip away peacefully. The questioning lasted more than 10 hours, and instead of treating him like someone who had just lost the most important person in his life, they pushed him with the intensity of people already convinced of his guilt, and Russ did not help himself because his emotions swung sharply between uncontrollable tears and quiet stillness, creating a confusing contrast that detectives interpreted as a man trying to mask the truth.
The fact of the matter is, you stabbed Betsy.
No, I did not. I wasn't even there.
You were there.
No, I found her like that when I came home. I did not do this. She has no reason to be scared of me. She's never been scared of me.
The fact of the matter is, it's a sloppy crime scene. There's blood on your clothes, in your residence, in your bedroom.
I didn't even go to my bedroom.
I was stabbed over 25 times.
Oh my God.
No. 25 times. They're still counting.
Oh my
A
God.
burglar doesn't do that, Russ. A stranger doesn't do that. Somebody who loves that person does that. Somebody who goes in a blind rage does that. Someone else that has any kind of motive, monetary or crime of passion.
I can't tell you what I don't know. I don't know.
Eventually, he gave them a full breakdown of his night, and the cameras confirmed every location he mentioned. Yet even with the footage supporting him, they still believed something about his story felt rehearsed. And at the same time, Pam, the longtime friend of Betsy, walked into the station offering a story that would flip the investigation upside down. Pam told them that 5 days before the incident, Betsy asked her to meet at a public library. And during that meeting, Betsy brought documents showing she wanted to change the beneficiary of her $150,000 insurance policy, removing Russ and putting Pam in his place because she feared he would waste the money instead of protecting her daughters. And Pam added that Betsy wanted her to set up a trust fund for the girls after she was gone. Then Pam delivered the detail investigators latched onto immediately. She claimed Betsy had written a document on her computer saying she suspected Russ was planning to harm her.
He makes comments about how much money he'll have after she's gone because he's got, this is what she said, I don't know for sure, I've never seen their financials, but he's got life insurance on her at work. And she goes, okay, well, I'll tell him, but I'm telling you right now, he's going to get very angry. She said he's tired of moving, he is staying in his house, and that's it.
So she had already approached him with the idea?
She was going to approach him.
Okay.
When he came home. He started playing this game of putting a pillow over her face to see what it would feel like. I don't know if she said, this is what it's going to feel like when you die or whatever, and then act like he was kidding. Mm-hmm. She was very upset. Yeah.
She sounds scared?
Oh, yeah.
With that statement, the detectives shifted from suspicion to certainty. But the case was far from clean because cameras showed Russ nowhere near the house during the time Betsy passed, and his clothes carried no red marks, despite the home being covered in it. And even more confusing, not a single trace of his DNA appeared on Betsy. The only physical link was a slipper of Russ with tiny red drops on it. Yet investigators found explanations for everything, because to them, the fact that Russ was not home suggested someone else might have helped him, and the matching phone records only convinced them he had crafted a perfect alibi. They argued that the high number of injuries reflected anger tied to Betsy removing him from the insurance policy, especially since she was expected to pass within months. And they claimed that no loving partner would walk into a room, find their spouse on the ground, and not touch them or try to check for signs of life. Russ was arrested and taken to trial, and investigators convinced the jury that his strong alibi was actually a calculated plan designed to redirect suspicion, and in 2013, he received a life sentence with no chance of release. At the end of the trial, Pam was asked whether she created a trust fund for the girls, and she said she could not do it because her mother, Shirley Neumann, had recently passed after falling from a window in her home.
Did she really have dementia? I just found out last week she really didn't have dementia. Before she went into this home, we had to have her tested. So her doctor sent, my brother did it, so I didn't know, to a neurologist to do the Alzheimer's dementia test. So you know what home to put her in. He did it, and the doctor said, yeah, she's got a little bit of problems, whatever. She's 77, whatever. Does she have dementia? No. Do we say that in our family? Heck yeah. Because to us, it was like, oh, there goes Grandma again. She's got Alzheimer's. We do all the jokes. And when people ask, yeah, to me, she had dementia.
Right.
By a neurologist, she did not. That's why she was placed in that home. And that's why it was no threat to be on the third floor.
Right.
But to everybody else on this planet, I took a 210-pound woman and threw her through railings. How do you do that? How does a man do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I know how stories get out of hand.
The investigation into Shirley Neumann's passing stretched from 2014 until late 2015 because nothing about the way she left this world felt natural. Even though her daughter Pam claimed Shirley suffered from dementia, the details inside the apartment told a different story, since the metal railing on the balcony was bent with a force that did not match the strength of a woman in her 70s, raising the question of how she could push herself hard enough to break steel before falling from the third floor. And if she could not have done it alone, then who stood with her in those final hours? The most troubling discovery came when the toxicology report revealed 8 times the usual dose of Ambien in her system, and investigators learned that Pam had been with her only hours before Shirley was found outside the building. Then another piece of the puzzle appeared when detectives learned that Shirley held an insurance policy worth $500,000, and the sole beneficiary was Pam herself, making the detectives look at her not as a devastated daughter, but as someone standing to gain far too much. The suspicion toward Pam grew quickly, yet everything collapsed when the forensic report suggested that Shirley may have lost her balance, slipped forward and caught herself on the balcony railing for a brief moment before her hands gave way, and her body dropped from the third floor, and the medical examiner ruled the passing as accidental, forcing investigators to close the case, even though their instincts kept insisting that a fall involving such force and such a strange interaction with the metal barrier could not be explained so easily. While this was happening, Betsy Faria's daughters were trapped inside a nightmare, with their mother gone and their father behind bars, and Pam still refusing to give them the insurance money, claiming she could not access it because of her mother's passing. And when Betsy's eldest daughter sensed something was wrong, she took legal action in 2014, filing a civil case against Pam, who eventually agreed to create a trust worth $100,000. But the calm did not last long, because investigators later discovered that Pam emptied the account and took everything back. During this period, Russ Faria's defense team was fighting its own silent battle. And in 2015, the appeal was accepted and Russ was released, pending a retrial. Not because of luck, but because his attorney Joel Schwartz presented a set of findings that flipped the case upside down.
Russ Faria almost didn't believe it, walking out to the lobby of the Lincoln County Jail to see his family. He hugged his mom while he seemed to cry and laugh at the same time. He walked out to a continuous stream of relatives and friends.
I was surprised. I knew everybody was trying to get me out, but I didn't know it would be this soon. You know, they come back and told me to pack my stuff. So I kind of figured I was going. I was just got off the phone trying to call my mom. So.
He's out on a $500,000 bond, put up by family members, including cousin Mary Anderson, who put her house on the line. Faria walked onto a shuttle donated by the company to keep his family together.
Get back caught up with everybody, feel normal again, you know. No bars or fences. I mean, it's just, I think it's still sinking in, really, at this point.
The first revelation was that Pam was the last person to see Betsy alive, and she claimed she dropped her at the door without entering the home. Yet phone data placed her in the area for 30 full minutes after she said she left, and then came the so-called Word file, the one that supposedly contained Betsy's fears about Russ. But forensic analysis showed it was written using Microsoft Word, 1997, a version that was not installed on Betsy's computer at all. Raising the question of who created this file and why, then came the most alarming detail. Pam had become the new beneficiary of Betsy's insurance only 5 days before Betsy lost her life. And when Schwartz reminded the court that Betsy's daughters had to sue Pam to get the money their mother trusted her with, the pattern grew even darker. And to add to that, Pam agreed to take a polygraph test, and then backed out at the last moment. This collection of facts convinced the judge to accept Russell's appeal. But it also pointed toward one chilling conclusion, that Pamela Hupp was at the center of something far more complex and dangerous than anyone had realized. And Pam did not like being placed under that spotlight, not even for a second. So in less than a year after Russ was freed, a 911 call came in carrying a story that will shock America to the core.
This time, I want to play the 911 call for you because I think the public should hear this. When I heard this 2 hours after it was made, or recorded, I should say, it just didn't sound right to me, and I thought we had something unusual on our hands. So, Linda, go ahead, please.
911, what's your emergency? Hey, hello, there's someone breaking in my house. Help me. What's the address you're at? No.
Well, me, you won't make this your wife?
No, I'm not getting in the car with you. No. What's the address? Get out, get out, get out. Help. What's the address you're at? Help, help. Okay, somebody break my window. No. Hello? Help! Help! Ma'am, can you hear me? Help! What?
We cut the recording off right there because in the next second, you could hear 5 gunshots ring out in succession.
On August 16, 2016, a man named Louis Gumpenberger, a 33-year-old homeless individual living with severe cognitive and physical impairments, after a devastating car crash, walked into the home of 58-year-old Pamela Hupp in O'Fallon, Missouri. And according to Pam, he rushed toward her while she was sitting inside her SUV in the garage, holding a blade and shouting at her to drive to the bank so he could take what he called Russ money. Pam claimed she knocked the blade from his hand, ran inside the house, and said Louis followed her like someone out of control, which pushed her to grab the handgun from the bedside table and fire 5 shots while calling 911. But when officers arrived, they found something deeply unsettling. Taped to Louis' body a note describing a plan to kidnap Pam, force her to withdraw Russ money, then end her life and place her back inside the home, making it look like what happened to Betsy Faria, with a final instruction telling him to make sure the blade was in the neck in exchange for $10,000. The investigators felt from the first moment that Pam's story did not sound logical at all, especially because after Russ was released, they had started re-examining the entire case, and Pam had just handed them exactly what redirected every suspicion toward her.
Car came down really fast down the cross street and whipped around right in front of my driveway because I'm right at the end. Here's the cross street and here's my driveway. So they came out and did this right in front of my driveway, and I looked up because it was so fast and startling, and somebody jumped out, and I was like, wow, somebody, I don't know what I thought, if somebody was hurt, I don't know what was going on. It was so fast. And then he ran up. I was halfway out the drive where I was parked, and he jumped in my car. He opened up the door and jumped in my car.
Which door?
The passenger.
Front or back?
Oh, front.
Oh, passenger front.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
And he had a bunch of stuff in his hands. I don't know what he had, but he had a knife also, but he had something in his other arm. I don't know what he had. And he put a knife and kept going, just yelling random stuff like, you're going to take me to the bank and get Russ's money. Take me to the bank. You're going to take me to the bank. He put a knife up to my throat there and was yelling stuff. And he kept looking behind him like this. So I put it in gear, and I was thinking how I was going to get out of there when he was looking, and he kept yelling, coming back, and then he looked back again, and I hit his arm with the knife and then shot out of the car and ran inside.
After the first interrogation, she was released, but not for long because evidence spoke louder than Pam ever could. Investigators found $900 in Louis' pocket, and each bill matched the serial sequence of money found in Pam's desk drawer. Still, one unanswered question remained. How did Pam convince Louis to walk into that house? And when detectives started digging, the truth was almost unbelievable in its simplicity. They discovered that just days before, Pam approached another woman pretending to be a producer for the iconic Dateline show and offered her $1,000 to come to the house and participate in a staged 911 call for a supposed TV segment. The woman grew suspicious, felt something was wrong, and backed out. Then went straight to police and gave a description that matched Pam exactly. And when detectives showed her Pam's photo, she confirmed it instantly. In that moment, everything became painfully clear. Pam had targeted a man who could not understand the danger she was leading him into, promising him he would only be acting while she had already planned to end his life for real to create a narrative that pointed away from her and back toward Russ. Just 7 days after her first interview, Pam was arrested and charged with first-degree intentional harm, and before being taken to jail, she asked to use the restroom, where instead of relieving herself, she took a pen and attacked her own wrists and neck, leaving officers shouting for help.
There's an officer here, a female officer that's going to reach in the bathroom. Okay.
About 5 minutes pass when you can hear officers yelling.
She survived and continued to insist she was innocent, even though detectives were now convinced she was responsible not only for what happened to Lewis, but also for Betsy and possibly even her mother Shirley. In 2017, investigators reopened Betsy's case from the beginning, and they also changed Shirley Neumann's manner of passing from accidental to undetermined. And on June 19, 2019, Pam entered an offered plea on first-degree intentional harm and armed criminal action. A plea that means she does not admit guilt, but accepts that all evidence points toward her. In exchange, she avoided the possibility of a death sentence, receiving instead life without parole. On August 12, 2019. In 2024, Pam was formally charged with intentionally ending the life of Betsy Faria, but because the case had exploded across national media, finding an unbiased jury became almost impossible.
We now know when Pam Hupp will stand trial for Betsy Faria's murder. Jury selection starts 1 year from today. About 1,500 potential jurors will be called. The trial expected to begin in August. It was moved from Lincoln to St. Charles County. Hupp is serving life for the 2016 murder of Louis Gumpenberger. Prosecutors say she killed him to frame Betsy's husband, Russ, and shift suspicion from herself. Russ spent 4 years in prison before his murder conviction was overturned in 2015.
After Russ Faria was fully cleared, he filed a civil lawsuit against law enforcement agencies and reached a settlement, receiving $2 million for the 4 years he spent behind bars. And in the end, Russ gained something far more valuable than the $150,000 Betsy left behind. He gained back his life and the chance to rebuild the one thing Pam could never destroy. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime documentaries. See you in the next video.